Yeah.
Yeah. What's the knowledge in the crowd, right?
Yeah.
Should we start from the scratch or give some introduction, or is everybody already familiar with Ethereum to some basic level? I don't know.
We can always do some little introduction. Come on.
Okay, we can do it.
Yeah, just start with some basic short introduction first.
Yeah, so that everyone can join. Okay, first introduction of us. So Nina and Alex, we are JavaScript developers and we work currently as remote contractors for Remix, an Ethereum IDE in the browser. So we want to share today how you can build a smart contract with Remix. And first, to start, Alex said he wants to do some little intro into what is actually Ethereum for everybody who doesn't know yet.
So yeah, maybe there are many ways to describe what Ethereum is, but maybe one way to say it's a set of tokens, and they are called like proposal. And start with the first one, and there are many implementations. One is you have many. Run an Ethereum node by starting any of those programs that implement all these proposals, and they together connect into a network. And what it offers you as a main service is that you can, because this Ethereum node is a hardware and software, an Ethereum virtual machine, and it can understand certain assembly programming language and execute it. And there are multiple high-level languages. One of them is Solidity, which we will talk about later. But there are others, and you can write a program in this, like a backend, and then you compile it and you deploy it in the Ethereum network. And this basically gives you a backend with an API, but it doesn't have a normal traditional server, but instead you have it decentralized. So the nodes in the network execute your backend for you. So there is no administrator anymore. It's all decentralized. And this backend is the major service that the Ethereum network provides. And now to come back to what Nina said, the Remix IDE allows you in the browser to build Solidity contracts, which again would compile to the assembly code, all the instructions that the Ethereum virtual machine understands, and you can deploy it to the Ethereum network.
So this is like a hardcore introduction for all the Uber geeks who want to see how this works under the hood, but like maybe a gentler start for everybody who don't understand all this low-level stuff. This is Remix. So IDE, basically like an editor in the browser, but because it's a little bit more than an editor, you don't just write the code here, but you can do also some other functionality. It's called basically IDE. So if you open it, you can go to remix-alpha.ethereum.org or remix.ethereum.org. So alpha is the version that is basically in alpha state. So it's not completely stable, but I think that it will be okay for this use case that we will show today. So it's the current version. So when you come to Ethereum, when you open it, you get like one pre-written contract, ballot.sol. So .sol extension means Solidity. And this contract is actually like a little app. It's a backend. So you write your backend in Solidity language in the form of contract. Later we can go a little bit more in depth how Solidity works, but otherwise you can find it on Solidity documentation. Everything how you should define functions and other things in Solidity. But once you write it, you have to compile it first. So you click here to compile. And after it's compiled, you can go to the Run tab, and now you can deploy it. So you can basically deploy it to to the Ethereum network. If you're just playing around, you can use a fake network that works only in a remix environment, but you get like approximately the same results. So you can just switch to JavaScript VM and click deploy. And this, as you can see, deployed a contract. And what did we get? We get like a auto-generated UI for this contract. Because as we said, the Solidity is a backend, so you still need a front end. And now if you want to just play around a little bit, you don't have time to now build the whole front end in JavaScript just to be able to interact. So in Remix, you get it for free. It's ugly. You can see the main functions from the contract. So these are the things that you can execute. So you can vote, because this is a ballot.sol. Ballot means actually a voting process. So you have a functions like delegate your vote, or give a right to vote to somebody, or vote, or what is the winning proposal. And these are also the functions that are defined here, you see? Give right to vote, delegate, vote, winning proposal. So now we can execute them from this UDAP, it's called, like this auto-generated UI that you get when you deploy your contract. So now if we vote, for example, we vote for proposal number 8, and we vote for proposal number 6, and then we vote for proposal number 8 again. And now we can check what is the winning proposal. It should be 8. Let's see. Is it 0? Why is it 0?
Because you have to actually first, for this one, I'm not sure, because now we're using this ballot contract.
Yeah, this one we never tried. This is like a default one, but okay, maybe we can check why it's not actually working perfectly. But I just wanted to show like a little base of how Remix works. So basically you have a file here, you write it, you compile it, and then you can deploy it, and then you can interact with it. But we prepared some other contracts, and we would like to show you like a working example.
It's a little bit more complex one.
Yeah, but like I just wanted to first make like a little overview of how in general Remix should work. So maybe here we can make a little break, and just like if you have some questions, so that before we continue we can clear these things.
Yeah, Nina.
Yeah.
I saw your status is it turned off the safe bandwidth mode. So I don't know.
Which status?
Okay, no, it's okay.
What did you? I didn't understand.
No, it said the video for Nina has been turned off to safe bandwidth.
Ah, so you can't see anything now.
I can see, but the screen
It's not sync.
is stuck.
Yeah.
Aha, okay, so let me refresh. But did you see before when I was clicking?
Yeah, you're clicking now, it's working again.
Okay, so now if I go to compile, you can see.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So was this like a little bit too much for the intro? Should we take a step back and talk a little bit more in details about this? Or should we go to the presentation that we had on this Ethereum conference, and we go once through, and then maybe at the end we talk more? Or if you have some questions, we can answer them now.
有问题吗？
No idea.
No idea.
No idea. I guessing it.
So
I
it
just
sounds a little bit
started.
too much.
Okay, so then
Okay, then
let's just continue.
yeah, let's go with this one, and then maybe when you
Yeah.
see the whole picture, maybe you will get like the more idea how everything connects together.
Okay.
Okay.
So what do we want to build in this workshop?
You can also try to follow along if you have a laptop. It's meant for you can follow along, but yeah, you can also later watch the video again and do it then.
If somebody wants to follow along, we can go slower, and then we actually do it together. Would you like this?
Yes.
Okay.
Sure.
Actually, we
Okay.
have 6 attendants now.
Super.
Perfect. So then then just prepare your laptops and maybe open the remix.ethereum.org, and then you can follow along.
Yep. So first, just to say what we want to build in this workshop. You know, when you vote, usually you cannot see what other people voted. So we created like a little transparent app where everybody can propose a certain thing, like, I don't know, improvements for the city, for example, and then everybody can see what others proposed, and everybody can also vote, and everything is public and visible, and then the person who gets the most votes gets some reward. But everything is transparent and decentralized, so it's not hosted on any server, but it's hosted on Ethereum network.
Yeah, imagine if you want to make a voting with anyone about something, then you always probably have to have a little trust in the administrator, that the administrator will not kind of introduce some fake vote or will manipulate the voting process.
So this is basically to create a voting process without any administrator. We can just trust each other and we can see the whole process. So what do we need first? We need to install MetaMask. This is this little icon here. You can, wait, we will use, do we use Robson network? Yes. Okay, so go to, let me see, I think we have it here where you find it. Yeah, go to Chrome, Google, just like extension store, like this is actually the link, Chrome, google.com/web store, and search for MetaMask.
But you can also go on the MetaMask webpage and get the link from there, because there are some fake MetaMask plugins on the Chrome web store.
MetaMask.com.
I think IO.
Okay. So then let's go to MetaMask.io and get Chrome extension.
Yes.
Look at this lovely Foxy. Can you see?
Yeah.
Yahoo! So what is MetaMask? MetaMask is a wallet, but it's a little bit more than that. It helps, it also runs an Ethereum node. So when you will do certain actions inside of the app, you always have to sign this with your address, and MetaMask as an extension helps because it plugs with Remix together.
Yeah, maybe I can add, technically, when you have the MetaMask wallet in the browser as a plugin installed, inject JavaScript into every web page that you are on, and if that web page wants to interact with the Ethereum network, it can send some information to your plugin, MetaMask, and then MetaMask makes a pop-up and asks you if you confirm it, and if you do so, then it sends that through a server. It's called Infura. It sends it to an Ethereum node that somebody hosts, like MetaMask people host on the web. So because you have to talk to the Ethereum network, but through this plugin it can, and you have to on the plugin confirm everything, so that you're in charge and not some website can just execute some transaction.
Okay, do you have it? Did everybody install?
But they're still installing.
So it takes a little bit more. Okay, once you install it, you have to create an account, and then you have many networks. Main network is actually the real Ethereum network, but because we will just try out things, we don't want to use the real ethers to pay for transactions, because this is a decentralized database or a server. We don't pay to one guy or like a company that hosts our stuff, but we do micro payments with each transaction that we execute. But for this purpose, for the test or for workshop, we will use the Robson test network. So select this one when you download it. It's maybe necessary to, like, once you download it, to also restart the browser, or will it work?
I don't know.
We will see. If you will have any problems that MetaMask doesn't work correctly, just like restart the browser. Maybe.
I think when you first install it, it asks you to create a new account. And you can also, it gives you like 12 words that you can write on a paper to back up your account. So when you come to any browser in the future and you install MetaMask again, you can enter those 12 words and it restores your account.
Because this is is your wallet. This is the same as the Jax.
This is like your password.
But you can use like main network, or you can use also these test networks. So everybody having MetaMask already?
Wait a second.
Okay, no problem. Just that you have a little foxy.
对，但是你要换成 address。
I will now create a new account. So once you are on Robston network, you can click here and create a new account. And once you create it, you will get free test ethers.
I think not.
Yeah, now I just created.
All right.
Yes. So you can create as many accounts as you want, and you always get like some test ethers that you can use. So don't be happy too much because these are just test ethers. You're not rich yet.
Now they are setting up their account.
Oh, super.
All right. It's also not too important to back up your account now, unless you want to. I mean, you can later reinstall it again.
Yeah,
But just once when you go on the mainnet and you buy some real ethers and you have it on your mainnet account, then you should for sure back up your account. Then it's very, very important. Because if you lose it, then your money is basically gone. But if it's just on the testnet, then it doesn't matter so much.
you can then always make a new account. Yeah. Okay. Let me just see what is the next.
账号，然后先做一个账号。
So then we can just go to these two remix, not to alpha, right?
Yeah.
So,
It's also has the params expansion.
but I think it's here also.
你先输一个查。
Okay.
但我这个位置让你做。
And I have to clear the cache.
没事。
That's nice that you will work along. I look forward, so then we can see if everything works properly. I will just copy these slides and post them into Jitsi chat, just because maybe you will have to copy something from here, so that you can also open them in your browser. Let's remix first. So, how's it going?
Now,
Some problems? Yeah, you have to be on Chrome. I
Yeah,
hope
yeah.
that this was here.
要选那个 Robston。
Remix might also work on other browsers, but for Chrome we
MetaMask.
tested the most. Yeah, but also Remix later.
Yeah, but MetaMask.
MetaMask has, I think, also Firefox extension.
Okay, but now, yeah.
选择 Robston test number。OK， 这就好。这是测试用的。然后进。你呢 ？Can you switch to the next slide?
Yes,
Remix.ethereum. OK。看那个
Yes. And you can check if MetaMask works fine. You can just click on the icon and see if you are logged in, if you are on this Robston
OK。
network.
And you
And
should
if-
also check if you have some
Kai
ethers.
remix.
If anyone has 0 ethers, then let's
we can send them.
then please say so. Then we can change that.
When you created the account, did you get some test ethers?
Mm,
Yeah? No?
Are you on the Robson network?
And what?
Are you on Robson?
is that Repson 吗？
And then here, and next step. What's next step?
点一下。
So you are on Robson network?
Yeah, they are in Robson network now.
And
you
you
don't
get-
have ethers.
But the ethers now, the balance is 0.
Okay, then you can go and buy. No, when you can click on buy.
Oh,
And then
buy.
you
Okay.
click the button Robson test faucet,
Okay. Robson test.
And then you can request.
and then you can take the button request 1 ether from faucet.
Okay.
Is greedy.
Yeah,
Okay.
I
No.
did this. But otherwise, you can also try to just create a new account and maybe you get,
等一下，等一下。
because I just created a new account. Ah, there is also one possibility. Can you try, Kang, maybe this? If you go to MetaMask,
Yeah.
you have here developer mode and not developer
I
mode.
think you have to use the faucet.
Switch
So
it on.
if you switch to developer mode
Yeah.
and then go to MetaMask and create a new account, do you get the test ethers then?
Wait, I try again.
Okay. You also have 0.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Developer mode.
Otherwise, you just have to use the test faucet, and it may take a short time.
经典啥？但是我现在要干嘛呢？你券吗？不是白吗？像因为现在是 test 啊，然后我现在不是要买吗？那是白吗？
你只是让他们想要那个点开那个，独立，然后点这个。
对啊。
Did this work maybe?
然后我现在把，
好啊，
因为像是车子
哦有了，OK
白
我看一下你
这，上不是有个到方式，
我先
你的有了吗？
嗯
你的是有钱的。
嗯
OK。你的 OK 吗？
那他要去哪里？他说要转换到那个Ethereum吗？
对。
要去哪里转换？
嗯，
在right
这个吧，就是
不是。
那
你像是有
然后
就是哪
右键，然后管理这个扩充，就这一页，然后右上角开发者模式，开发者模式打开。
很好听，设定，不用管你们。哦有自己，好像我一直都是开放我不是按这里，应该是按这里没反应下来。
Did it work?
Wait for a second, one more.
You can start a new team.
I can't drink this hot tea anymore.
Okay.
You have water here.
No, I want that.
Oh, that's fine.
哦，慢，
Nice.
怎么这样啊？
Not completely full.
不是，这个是它的 plugin 慢。Jerry, okay.
What is going on? Let me help.
Now okay, they all already had the initial balance, so yeah, we can go.
So it's
for next.
downloaded, but no funds yet.
Yeah.
So no.
Now they have the funds already.
So did you go to this buy?
Yep. Bye.
Yes.
Bye.
Yeah. And then if you go back, do you have any? You can go like, do you have one account only or did you create many?
One account only.
Okay. And if you refer, like, maybe can you try to create a new one?
Okay.
OK，再开多新的一个账号，跟头，然后 create account，
And the Robson test network.
Aha, I get 0 now.
对，再摆，对，
But no. Now you go to buy and test faucet.
Yes, but before I was getting them.
I know, but I
5
never.
minutes ago.
This is just from yours.
Okay.
I always was getting them only from the
Okay, everybody now clicked, but they don't have it yet. You can click many times this request, so then you can get for each time you get one. But what you click here,
按行，
you ask for somebody to send you, and this takes some time now to be processed.
等一下，
Maybe we can.
Can you see in your account any number already?
they are still buying on the second account.
Okay.
Maybe you can post your addresses and then we can send you. That's also a cool thing to learn.
Yeah. Okay, so what you can do, because look, I have an account. Can you see my screen still? I have 56 ethers
OK，
in my account. So if you go to this Jitsi and copy your
address，
address. So this is, you see, this is your account. You click on 3 dots and copy address to clipboard, and then you can send it here to me,
先把你的名选，
and I can send you ethers to this address.
那个说 send me 一次，
But usually it should work with the test faucet.
你先 send me，对，对，看那个。Yeah, some people they request，
One has to lead the process.
这样才会发钱到你的。对，但这个是测试用的。OK 吗？
Okay. So I will now send to the first address.
如果不行的话，你发送地址给他们。
但是我现在就已经有一些可能只要
第二个，
一定要开第二个。
没有，因为他比较尝试做
Then I
两
will
个
go。and take the next
我
one,
真没有用这个关掉。
which is Fanny.
Fiona.
Fiona. Sorry. This
看一
one.
下第二个的。
因为现在都是在测试。
If that was just really
Okay. The 你叫什么 ？Abby she received so
perfect.
So fast, that's good.
你呢？
So transaction times on Robson are good.
你有开第二个账号吗？你给他是第几个账
可是我给他好像是第一个。
号？哦，那你有收到吗？
第二个。没有，没收到。
对，他这个 HMRC 怎么看到人家发送过来钱的那个记录？他那个发送去，但是没有发送进来。
Everybody else has it, or did somebody else post? See, Nora.
Nora.
I'm learning. So we go here.
Fiona.
Ethers. And we confirm it. Oof. Fiona, did you get it?
Where to check it? I received. Yes, I received it. It's the currently is 5. Is that you give me 2, right?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
OK，
I got 5 now.
Okay. Let's see somebody else.
And Nina, where can we check the transaction that you sent me or something?
Yeah, later we will also touch this, so
Okay.
we can check. But otherwise, you can use the Ether scan. In Ether scan, for example, you can copy paste your address. Like the last one I have from Nora, I can paste it in. Yeah, but it has to be Robson.
Yeah.
Because we are in Robson.
In Robson network.
Yeah, Robson etherscan.io, and then here we search, and it will show that Nora is receiving 2 ethers.
OK，
57 seconds ago.
就可以到这个网站去查人家发送给你的，但是你不知道谁是谁了。但是因为你是有自己钱包嘛，因为你自己钱包地址。
This is Etherscan is a program where you can check all the transaction on the network from anyone, but because we are in the test network, we have to first put robson.etherscan.io to check those from the Robson. Okay, so let's see if anybody else posted. No, so everybody now has ethers on the Robson network.
Yeah.
Yes?
Yeah.
So we can continue? Ready to go to the next step?
现在就是有一个账号，你再创一个，
再看
没办法干嘛？
按这个，
这个就可以看，对。
它会显示create new account。
Hank, can we continue?
Yeah, one more people who want to wait.
Aha, okay. Then just let us know.
Yeah.
No pressure, just that we know when to continue.
Please hold 1 minute.
Uh-huh. And this now should be... Yes, Nora received it, right? It's not pending anymore.
So the current state we are using the testing account, right? You are
too
close, yeah. That's why we are on one computer today, because it can get messy. Yes, we are using test, but you can also, like with Nora, I used once already the real main network. When we were in Taipei, we paid for the rent in ethers to Nora. Unfortunately, they were worth way more than. Sorry, Nora, for that. Okay, is this the thing I should be pasting? Yeah, Alan. So this is the address. So I will send you 2 ethers, 2 Robson ethers. Okay. So we can check the status. Yeah, for Alan, 2 ethers are pending. Still pending. Can you still see the screen? Are we still here? Can you still hear and see the screen?
Yeah.
Okay. So was Alan the last one without ethers?
I know you a little bit, and then you continue. How do we split it?
Okay, so Alan got his 2 ethers. Anybody else? Anyone else missing ethers? Or we are, let's see. 2,000 ethers, yeah. All good, okay. Cool, so we can continue. Can you just say yes, everybody, if you're ready to continue?
Yeah. We are ready.
You're ready, you were born ready. Okay, So the next step is, let's finally open this remix.ethereum.org. So this is now our tool where we will finally use the MetaMask to confirm the transactions.
Didn't clear the cache.
Let's see. Huh? I just have to clear the cache because I have some stuff from the last time. Woohoo! Somebody's coming.
Yeah.
More people.
A lot of people here.
Let me just see. All good, yes. So you have the same screen as me, right? You're on it, remix.ethereum.org, and you have this ballot sol open.
Yep.
Yes, so this is a default one that I was showing you before, but for this workshop we created a special one. So first, now that we have all MetaMask, we have to set our environment. We will not use anymore the JavaScript VM, but we use injected web, Robston, and it also finds our address. So just check if on the run tab you have the same, if the environment is injected web, Robston, and that this is your address. Would work. I think it should be by default. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And the next thing what we will do, so in our team we created a couple of files, couple of contracts in advance, and now we can load these contracts from a gist. So they are all saved on a gist, and we can on GitHub gist, and now we can copy this command. I will paste it here in the chat. So you copy this command and you paste it here in the terminal. So below the editor there is a terminal, the gray area, and you paste this remix load gist and some numbers. And when you paste it, it will load the whole folder from gist with those contracts in award token, ballot, readme with instructions, and these are the instructions for this workshop. If you want to recreate it later, you have like very thorough instructions. Then you have ballot. This is another ballot. It's a new one. It's different. And there is a word token. So just maybe a couple of words about this. So ballot is still the same logic. It's about voting, but we created also a word token. And this award token is a special token that a winner of this voting will receive. So we create like each time there is a voting, we create special amount of these award tokens, and then the winner gets these award tokens. It's an ERC20 token. That's why it also needs some dependencies. You see this one, award token, depend on this all of these files. If you open dependencies text, you see the dependencies that are used to create those two contracts.
But you see them actually in the contract. So they're like imported. On the top you have mintable token ERC20, but this mintable token sol has more dependencies. So we listed all of them in this dependencies txt because we have to load them. No, or maybe try to compile it now.
So if I now for example, I have this award token and I import those other things, but you cannot see them. Where is mintable token.sol? It's not here. So if I try to compile, it will complain. It will say, oh, unable to import the mintable token. So we have to do one more step because we are using those. We also have to load these dependencies. So this is the next step. So we open the dependencies and we run remix column batch. So remix column batch. I can also copy this to the chat. And if you run this, you will so the dependencies file has to be open, and then we can run this, and it will start loading all the dependencies, and you will get them here in the GitHub folder. So now I can wait for everyone to do the same, and let me know when you're done.
OK，
什么我
有还漏洞。
好像是说这个要打开，可是因为这个我刚用
你已经漏出来了。
哦，
第一步是漏这个东西，就是呼叫它该用的东西，然后第二步就是盯。
可是它第一好像全部打开才能够认识，因为我刚刚贴着，然后它就都不行，后来我就全部打开。
So just to repeat, first we use this command remix load gist, and in this gist we have those files saved: a word token sol, a ballot sol, readme, and dependencies. So you will get a gist folder in your Explorer, file Explorer on the left side, and after that we have to open dependencies txt. And when it's open, while it's open, we run in the terminal command remix batch, and this will then load also it will actually execute all these what are they, commands. So it will load this file, it will load this file, each one of them, but we don't have to run it separately. We can just load the whole batch, and it will load all these files in the GitHub folder, because it loads them from the GitHub, so it creates a GitHub folder. And before it loaded them from the gist, so it created a gist folder.
Sorry, I just missed some steps. So I just entered the remix Ethereum. So what's the first
因为
step?
刚刚我已经把你我刚刚把这打开了，所以你现在就可以接了。它要这个打开是
So the first step is you check if the environment is set to the injected web, Robston,
Okay,
in the run
Ross.
tab. Yes.
Let me see. Roston. Where is the Roston?
Testnet or set.
Setting?
Run tab. You see environment.
现在已经是 Roston 了，
Okay.
已经 Testnet。
So what's next step?
It is set to this. You can switch to some other to JavaScript VM and then switch back to injected web. It should be on injected web. Did you find it?
Yes.
Okay. So the next step is you go to this terminal below the editor and run this command remix load gist and this thing. So the command is posted here. You see?
Okay. I
So
see it.
you just put it in and click enter.
Okay.
And now you should get a gist folder. Do you
Yes,
have
I
it?
got it.
Okay,
Yes.
with all these 4 files in.
Cool.
Okay, and now because we have to also run the dependencies, you open the dependencies
Yes.
and then go to the terminal and then run remix batch.
Okay.
So remix semicolon batch, or I mean colon, sorry, remix colon
Okay.
batch. And when you do this, you should get a GitHub folder.
Yes.
You have it, and then inside you have Open Zeppelin
Yes.
and all this. Okay, so this is it. If you have this, then you are up to date.
Okay.
Does everybody have this?
Yeah, you're all fine here.
Okay. So now we said we see this new folder, and now let's open the file awardtoken.sol in the gist folder.
GST.
Oops, here is an error. It should be sol. I will just quickly fix this. Okay. Ooh. So we opened the award token, and now let's start to compile it. Let's try to compile it. So we open the award token, and we go to this compile tab, and we click start to compile. So if everything is okay, we don't get any red errors here.
Yeah.
These are just some warnings for improving the style, but it's nothing crucial that the compilation failed. So it succeeded actually. And if it succeeded, we will also here in the drop-down menu see all the contracts that were successfully compiled, because we compiled the award token, and award token uses also these other contracts, so ballot and all of those from GitHub folder. That means that they were all compiled in this one move. So did you get this? Was it successfully compiled for you too?
Yes.
So you have them.
Yes.
Everybody?
Okay.
Nobody is stuck. Okay? And then we go to the next step. So we now go to the Run tab, and we will deploy the contract. So what did we do? We now have a contract, we compiled it, so we created a compilation that is understandable to Ethereum virtual machine, and now we can deploy it. Now we can send it to the network. So let's choose the award token and click deploy. And because we need to pay a little bit of price for this transaction to deploy to this server, to this decentralized server, we pay to the miners a little bit. We have to submit the gas price, 1 GWei. This is like a fraction of Ether. So it's $1.42.
It's the max.
It's gonna in the max, in the worst case scenario, it's gonna cost us $1.42. But because we are on the test network, it will cost us actually nothing. So we just submit, and you can see here it says creation of award token is pending. We can also click on the Robson to see, and it's still pending. And then we can follow. Either we wait here, and when transaction will be mined, we will get a notification here, or we wait in the Robson. So I would just go back to Remix, because I know that the when transaction is mined, now every transaction that gets executed waits there, and a couple of them connect into a block, and then this block gets mined by the miners, and then the transaction is actually updated in the network. So this can take like up to a minute usually.
Okay.
Do you all have this pending?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So let's see. Still pending. Okay, it's already a minute. But okay.
We all send our transactions in the same time, so it takes a little longer.
Maybe we will all be in the same block because we send them at the same time.
Okay, Nina.
Yeah.
I gonna wait, take a rest for a minute because the screen recorder I gonna stop and relaunch again.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
we take a rest.
Maybe we can even later cut something out so that we have the empty.
You see?
Okay.
Did you also get it?
Yeah, you're all fine.
Yes.
So
Ready.
what did we get now? So from our award token, it was successfully mined. So this is the details about transaction. So if you click on this log, you can expand it and you can see status, transaction was mined and execution succeeded. It was sent from, that's my address, to this contract. This is how much gas it was used. Gas is actually the price. So they say that, like, you know, like a car or something runs on the gas. Also, Ethereum network runs on a gas.
Yeah, but this gas means actually computation. So the CPUs of the people in the network, they have to do some computation, and they have a calculation based on the contract where they analyze how much will approximately take, how many execution steps to make this whole program code run through. It's not always accurate, but after the transaction succeeds, they can tell you exactly how many execution steps it took. And this is basically what the gas resembles. And for this gas, you have to pay.
Okay, so you can also collapse the details, so you can open and collapse. And now what we also got is this auto-generated UI. So we can collapse maybe here to have a nicer screen, to make this bigger. So all the functions that are defined in this award token are now listed here. So this is the API of this contract. So we can basically interact with any of these functions. But if you go and closely look, you will see that not all of them are actually present in this contract. Why? Because some of them actually come from these other contracts that are that we use as dependencies. So we basically have certain things from these other contracts, from this ERC20, and then on top of this, we added some more contracts like start a round, get previous winners, close a round. What does this mean? As I said, this is gonna be like a voting app, and everybody, like anybody who wins, gets this award token. So each time we start the process, we have to also start a round. So if we continue here, we can see that we will have to also execute this to actually start a round, start a voting round. So let's click this start round function. Start round. And this is again a new transaction, but this time we want it a little bit faster, so let's just put 100. It's gonna be more expensive, but we are anyway on the test
No,
network.
it's only in the worst case. This is the maximum that you are willing to pay.
Yes.
If it costs more, then the transaction will be cancelled.
So we can
Pay,
execute.
we pay 100 for this transaction.
I mean, you can do whatever, but then it's kind of faster.
Okay.
Let's see how much faster will it be. The previous one needed like approximately 2 minutes. This one. Still pending? We can take more if you want to put this up. What? Here.
So
Okay, no, still pending. You want to go in? Because with this, So it doesn't matter what you pay, still send quicker as well.
That's cool.
Okay, my transaction is finished. What about yours?
Not yet. Still pending.
Okay. We are moving indoor because Alex has allergy, so he cannot be outside.
It's already 1 minute. Still pending.
有提到 gas 吗？
Mm-hmm.
I finished.
Mm-hmm.
Can you hear us?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So the transaction was successful.
Yeah. Success.
Was it also for you? So you started a new round. You can just check in the details of the transaction if you have a new ballot. That means that you started this new ballot. And why is this here? You can see in the function start round. It checks.
Yeah, in line 26 it creates a new ballot
Yes.
instance.
Here, yes. So then we have this, and you have it, right? So then we can continue. We started a round successfully, and we got a transaction, and we can see this new ballot. And now we have to execute next call. And this is a call. So blue functions are just call, are just get functions, so they don't cost any gas. They are executed immediately and they don't cost anything, but the red functions are payable functions because we are sending or basically sending information to the database, to the network. But when we are just retrieving information, we are just doing a call, and this is free.
Basically, the difference is also when you, because Ethereum network is a global database, then whenever you want to make a transaction that changes the state of the database, this change has to be shipped to everyone in the network. And that's why it's very expensive, so you pay for it. But when you want to just retrieve data, because everybody has a copy of this database, everybody who runs a node, you can just get to anyone's node or to a few of them and retrieve the data, and you have the guarantee that this data is the same for everyone. So retrieving the data is cheap, but sending the data means everybody who runs a node has to update now something in his database. So that's a lot that is happening, especially when there's many people in the network. Okay, so now because we created a new, we started a new round, and this starting a new round created a ballot. We can now click current ballot, which retrieves us the address of this ballot. So if you think in terms of what is happening, we have the award token, which means we have an ERC20 token that we can give out. It's like we make our own money. But how are we distributing the money to other people? We say we start a round. Everybody can make proposals for what he wants to do, like a little project. And then everybody can vote on proposals, and the one who gets the most votes, they get the new money that we created. And then they can, of course, hopefully spend it so that they can make their project proposal a reality. So now we started a new round. So we say, this means we ask now everyone, hey, a new round started. You can now make your proposals, what you want to do, what projects do you want to work on. And then everybody can vote. But in order for everybody to see the proposals and to vote on them, they need to now see for this new round, what is the address? And this is what we get when we click current ballot. So we can copy this one. You see it also here. And then you can copy it. It will be also logged in the transaction in the terminal. There you can also see it if you prefer to use the terminal. So let's go and just quickly show that. When I clicked current ballot, it created a transaction, and if I scroll down here, it says decoded output address here in the terminal, and it's the same as here. And if I click it again, it updates the one here, but because it was the same as before, it looks the same. But here you get another transaction, and in this transaction, oh, cool, on the back. So in this transaction, you have also the same address. Okay. And now, what do we do with this? We switch to the ballot.
In the run tab.
In the run tab, we can go. So what we need now, in order to interact with the ballot, we need. This is the address of the. This one is the address of our ballot backend. So the ballot backend handles all the proposals and voting. But how can we interact with this backend? We need a little front end that allows us to click buttons to create proposals and stuff like this. So in order to do this, we can go here up and we select the ballot contract. And now instead of deploying a new one, we say, hey, connect to an existing one. We copy in this address, and then we say connect to it. Did it work? Now, yeah, it worked. So now that's the award token. We collapse it for now, and now you can see below. Here we created. We can now click twice, but it doesn't matter. We created a little front end, like a generated front end, a universal dApp, which has all the methods that our ballot backend has. So if you go to the ballot contract, you can see here get proposals, add proposal, all these methods, and here you can interact with them. But
one thing maybe, because you see that before we deployed the award token we deployed, and this one we click add address. What does this mean? Basically, because when we deployed a award token contract, this one has inside of the code written that it will generate a ballot.
it
generates and deploys one.
When you click start run.
Yes. Just a second.
So the award token is what we deployed, and then we called the method start round, and that made the award token deploy a ballot for us. With the method current ballot, we got the address, but now we want to see some front end to interact with this new created ballot backend, this decentralized one. So how do we do that? We choose the ballot contract so that we know from the ballot solve what are all the methods that this backend has. And then we say this address that we put in here is actually an address that has an instance of exactly this ballot file. And then we create a front end, and because our local remix IDE knows from the ballot.sol file all the methods, it can create all the buttons here in this front end. And whenever you click a button from this ballot front end, it just sends them to this address, assuming that, like we said, this address will have actually an instance. So when we send an add proposal transaction, this little backend that runs behind this address will understand what it means. And if this address actually is an instance of this ballot.sol that award token created, then it will understand it.
So did you follow so far? Do you have everything? Do you also have the ballot, this little UI
Yes.
on your computers?
Also, if there's any questions or something, then maybe just say. I can try to explain it better. I don't know.
So everybody has a ballot and a word token here.
Yes.
Yes, everybody.
Okay.
So we can continue. Okay. Maybe, when we get to the end, it will maybe all connect together, but I know that it's a lot of information, but let's just.
So we did select the ballot, so because we have the local ballot sol file, and now we put in the address of the ballot.sol instance that was actually created by the award token when we started the round. And with that address, we connect to this running one and have our little generated front end. And it looks like this. And now we want to add a new proposal. So if we see in the ballot.sol file, there is a function add proposal, and here's the button for it, and it takes 3 params, like a description, a title, and a target address. But we can expand it, so we get like a separate input for everything. So we can just make a description.
We can make our own proposal. So it's a string, so we have to use the quotes. This is a proposal for a better app. Title, Nina's proposal, and the address.
I think it's our MetaMask address, because when you add a proposal, you want to say what is who sent the proposal, who's the author.
So to get our address, we can go up to the account and just click this to copy the address.
So on the run tab, you already have your address currently selected.
So we can just copy
the value, and then you just paste it in. So now this is the author, and we create a title and description, and we add the proposal.
So we click
transact. Of course, that's again changing the backend, right? You add a new proposal. Everybody who runs an Ethereum node for this network needs to get a copy of this, and that's why it costs, because it's a write. It's not a read operation, it's a write operation. So okay, now we have to wait a little bit, because of course it's again pending.
But we can create maybe one more proposal.
Now we can create the second one. So let's see, maybe I can also come up with something. Description. Let's make a nice wizard Amigos tutorial learning app to teach all this stuff. Award token contract, which means every address can only create one proposal and vote once. You cannot create multiple. But you can write a different award token contract that has a different logic, but ours has this logic. So we need to switch to a different account. But each of you, you can actually also, oh, I have a good idea.
So Remix has a little problems lately that it doesn't update the address. So
you can download here.
Yeah, but which one is it? It's the same. So I will just copy it from here. So I switch to the other account and I will copy it, and then we can say that this is the person.
This doesn't work like this. Okay, doesn't matter.
Yeah, because Remix still takes this address.
Yes.
Okay.
So, but what we can do is.
So why was this error? Because Remix still sees that I'm I have this account, and it takes also this information.
Yeah,
who is the creator?
I think we should fix this, but otherwise you could now save these addresses from the award token, refresh the Remix with the new address, and then you repeat the process. But let's just say our award token. We copy the address, and then I paste it to the chat. So if you want, I paste it. This one that I pasted in the chat is the address of our award token that we deployed. So if you go,
you should copy the ballot address.
All right.
Yes.
So let's.
So you can create a proposal on our ballot.
Right, and you have a different address, so it's allowed. So I will forget the first address, and so ballot. So I pasted the ballot address. So if you copy this ballot address and then you will put it into the run tab into add address and connect it, you will get a little generated UI, but you can now interact with our ballot.
So you will get it here. You
So
see?
everyone in the room can now make a proposal and vote on the proposal on the same ballot, which is maybe interesting to try.
So you can connect to our ballot with this. You copy paste it here, and then you go and add a proposal,
Yes.
and it will come to our ballot.
Yes. So maybe you should just now try this. And we have here a call. It's a read-only get proposals. If I click it, it lists one proposal.
But now if you add more,
Now, if you add some and the transactions go through, then hopefully we can see more than one.
is anybody trying?
可以吗？
我现在不太懂的是，他说就是贴他们，因为我说拿进去考不多少贴上面，然后就这边就是会贴他现在的那个。
有的有。
贴到哪里？
行，你已经按了吗？贴，对。
刚刚说
不是这个。
不是这个。
Did anybody manage to connect to our ballot?
Can you repeat again how to
Yeah.
connect?
So you go here to Jitsi, and in the chat, Alex posted you the address. You see?
Yes.
So you can copy this address
Yes.
and then go to Remix, and you paste it here.
你数字多一次。
Yes.
对对。
Add address on the Run tab, and then you click Add address. And if you scroll down,
Oh.
you will have now another ballot,
Yes.
and this is now you can see that the address here should be 0xfe9 something. Do you see?
No.
Nope.
Okay,
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
FE9, FE9, right? Okay, I see.
Yes.
I saw it.
Sorry, I didn't hear well. What did you say?
Nina?
Yes.
I just add the new address.
Yeah.
I get a new ballot,
有看到吗？
Okay.
but the function of it there is only 4. So the first one is delegate. The second one is give right to
它
vote.
的就用一样的，
Yes, yes, maybe there is a problem
但是你上面好像先改成它的，然后才能够
in
用
the
下面
File
那个。
Explorer.
那我说他
You have
的
to
address
click
在
under
写
再
Just
用它的，
也是那
刚才
个聊天室那一串。
对对对对对对对。
Maybe you selected this
然后
one
它就会开始 pending。
in the browser.
Proposal。
这标题在打什么？你说？
So you go under gist and select the ballot.sol here,
对对，要双引号。对对。
and then you select it also here on the Run tab, ballot,
然后下面
and then you paste this address.
Okay.
Let's see. I hope it works. Does it maybe work now?
Yeah, they are now trying.
嗯，开头，
哦，开头。
开
打
头
AB 还是随便？
It worked.
Yes. Now you have all the functions.
Wording.
No. Why?
你那时候的 target address will be your address too, right?
No.
Sorry? So the address that you put here in add address should be 0xfe94 something.
Yeah, yeah,
Do you
yeah.
have?
I mean in the field.
Yes?
In the target address in the ad proposal.
Yes? Yeah, in the proposal should be your account address.
Oh, your account. Okay.
Yes.
这个是
Did you
你的
manage to connect?
对对对。
就是这个上面复制。
Could you pass the address again?
那我现在是全
Check
在
the last
成
one
功
that you
我刚按过一
It's
次。
That one?
会跳出来了
The。last one.
Ah, yeah.
it's
I'm Chad. It's Alex.
Hang manage to connect to the right one? Do you
Still
get all the functions?
Yeah, but one of our attendants, she got the error say at the JSON position 15 an expected token.
Because
Let's see.
I think
So
she passed wrong.
So
okay.
let's just kind of
Target is should be sent. Okay. Target should be sent. Is sent.
他自己的。
Maybe try the target
Okay, okay.
address with string.
也不是要用一样的。
target
没有没有
address
他
maybe.
也是用
No. Ooh, this is the problem. I see. So basically, the target address when you create a proposal shouldn't be our ballot. I think there was a confusion. So in order to connect to our ballot, you have to load it here.
Yeah.
So you paste this address here, but I see that Jerry pasted the address here as a target address. But this target address should be your
要用
account
自己的。
address.
Okay.
不然你就
Sorry.
他跟他在互联。
Use your.
Okay, you okay?
Kind of confused.
Yeah, so try again. So basically just target address should be your account.
Okay.
I think it's a bad naming of variable target address. It should be actually like account address or something, but
If you see on our screen, we have three UDAPs. One is for our award token, one is for our ballot, which we got to after starting the round, and there's a third one, which is another ballot. Now, for us, both ballots have the same address, but for you, this ballot, the first one, should be the one that comes from your award token instance, but the second one now is meant to be our ballot. And you get the second one by going to the Jitsi chat, copying our ballot address, which was created by our award token, and putting it into the field address, so that it creates an instance. It looks, the UI, the buttons looks the same as your ballot, but the first one is the ballot from your award token, and the second one is our ballot that was created by our award token. And the reason is so that we can interact all with the same ballot to add the same proposal to the same one.
okay, it looks like
Still 4 functions.
What?
Why?
Which one?
we have three.
And
Yeah.
then what?
Delegate.
What is delegate? Where is the?
So the first step is to pass the.
Yeah, there is a.
No, this is my address.
Yeah, but
Abby,
Yep. Yep.
deploy again.
Abby
Choose
success.
the right one.
Yep.
This
I'm the only one success.
address.
What?
Can you see the screen?
This one.
Abby
Yeah.
successfully created.
What did you click?
Oh, MetaMask.
So we have three our ballot. One is from Abby.
Maybe Abby can help because she managed to do it.
The second one is the second.
I'm totally new here. How can I help? Anybody need help?
Abby did
Does it happen?
Yeah, it's create new.
Okay, we still have only 2 from Abby and 1 from me.
Oh, great too.
Yeah,
Wow, two. There's a two from Abby.
yeah.
Like I
Maybe you click twice or something. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe you should.
I
To
pressed
try
twice.
Yeah, let's see. No, sorry. This is Alex, handsome Alex. La 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 la. This was Jerry for sure.
Hello.
Alex.
This was Alex. So he's a handsome Alex.
So there's another Alex is ugly.
No, the other one is charming. They say that one is charming, one is handsome.
Okay.
But this is Jerry's world.
This is in the Jerry's world. Yeah. Okay. So let's make this simple. simple. So now you can see also how you can connect to somebody else's ballot. But I think this was not planned. Now we just did this for fun. So if you want, we can continue, or we wait that all of you try to vote on our ballot.
Or create proposals.
Yeah, sorry, create
So
proposals.
the point is, wait, maybe let's also vote a little bit.
I mean, just one thing. I think it's gonna be confusing now. Which ballot is that?
It doesn't matter, it's the same for us.
Okay. So let's continue.
Okay, so we added a proposal and we put in our address to send it, and then we submitted it by confirming MetaMask that we are willing to send this proposal. And we got the transaction and it was mined, and then we click now. If you want, you can click the Get Proposals button, and it shows you all the proposals and their addresses. And you can see when you click the button the transaction in the terminal, and there you will see the addresses. But so let's go first there.
So you can do this in your own ballot. There, I think you should have only one proposal because it's just you who created. So if you go to the first ballot and click Get Proposals, you will get only one address, but we now opened our ballot, so we got 3.
Yes, we have now, and there you can see here's a little comma in between.
And here.
And here's also a comma. It's not so nicely, we have to improve that, but it's actually 3 proposal addresses, and you can take
Hello.
and expand. Okay, so you can also go to the terminal and expand after clicking Get Proposal, and you see here decoded output. Those are the same addresses. So now if you want to see one of them, you can
Yeah, I have to copy it.
well, that's a little bit difficult.
So go to click Get Proposal and just copy the address.
So I will now copy the first address of the proposal, and then I can go to the proposals function, and I can say, list me this proposal. And when I click it, it logs a new transaction, and I can see here, decoded output, this is the content of the proposal, but you can also see it here. So there you see actually the text and the title and how many votes it got so far, 0, and who sent that proposal.
Did you get this on your screens?
So now if you have one proposal, you can basically check all of them. Yeah, okay, let's first see if everybody can see this.
Can you confirm? Do you get this on your screens?
Okay.
Can you see all the proposals from the ballot app, from the ballot contract, and take one proposal and display it here under proposals?
Yes.
So everybody has it. So we can continue.
So the point of this is our front end is these buttons. It's very ugly, but it works. Of course, in the real world, you would make a nice voting app that is more convenient to use. This is just for now testing when you start making a contract. So the idea is Get Proposals gives you all the addresses, and with proposals and listing one address, you can get the details of a single one. So you can check now all the proposals content by selecting one address after the other and listing them. Now I will, for example, use this last one. Now I will put the last one into the proposals and click proposal. And now I can see from Abby the proposal. So after you read all the proposals, you choose one that you like. Let's say you like the proposal from Abby. So then you can go copy the address, and put it on the vote function, which is a red button, because voting, if you now vote on this proposal, it will change the state of the database of the Ethereum network. Because the vote count will go from 0 to 1, and this will cost. So the next step would be choose any of the proposals and click vote, which again opens a MetaMask pop-up, and it asks you, do you really want to confirm that you want to send this transaction and it costs you something? We say, yeah, okay, let's do it. Let's vote for this proposal. And now again, we have to wait for
当
the
然可以吧？
OK，
那我需要多少？1块可以吗？
1块9。
我也给我自己多一点钱。
这样好吗？这样好了，然后
点开。
So now we just have to wait for this voting transaction to be mined. Aha, now we got the confirmation. Somebody mined it. Did you also get the confirmation? Did you also vote on one proposal?
刚刚用这个，
他们用这个。
Maybe everyone can vote on one proposal. It doesn't matter which one.
激活了，
Try to do that.
然后
有数字，
然后
数字呢？
这么
对，错。然后按图。对，就可以看到大家信息。那你确定要投给他的话，你就在 board 这边把这个再贴上去，把地址贴上去，就是投给这个人，要按投，再跳出一个，这样子呢就有投进去了。
那所以刚刚下面，
那就可以关掉了，因为你已经有过了。
可是这个不简单。
Did you vote already?
Yeah, I think 3 people already voted.
哎，有哎，
Okay. So everybody or many of you voted on one of the proposals and confirmed it in probably with MetaMask, and now it's pending, or maybe it will be confirmed already. On ours, it is already confirmed.
3个。
Can you vote more than one person? No. Can you vote more than one person?
Alex, can you vote more than one person at once?
No, no. Every person can only vote on one.
On one.
And you can vote yourself.
You can only vote once, but this is only because this is how the award token.sol contract and the ballot.sol contract were programmed. If you want, and you, of course, if you know Solidity or you learn Solidity, you can make a different award token where you can vote multiple times. On this one, you can only vote once, so everybody has just one vote, and you have to choose.
但投自己是可以的。Alex,
Maybe there should also be
Alex,
that you, yes.
Alex, can I vote myself like instead other people? Can I vote to myself?
Yes. I think this is allowed in this contract. You can vote for your own proposals.
Okay.
For example, those are the questions. Like if, for example, we decide for our Wizard Amigos, or you make a project and you want to maybe make some logic for voting. If you have a co-ownership for your NGO or whatever, you should think about the logic, how you want it. Should people be allowed to vote multiple times or once? And then you have to try it out and you just program your own version of the contract. So this award token Sol is more like an inspiration. You can see how it works, and if you don't like certain things, you just make your own version.
Okay. Thank you.
So we're not saying this is the best logic how to do the voting. Maybe they should be different. It's just now one version, and we're just to show how it works.
Okay.
Okay, so where did we stop? So yeah, we voted. Right. I'm a little bit lost in seconds. Okay, we go to more token. Okay, so now we did quite something, right? We created a award token, then we started a new round and then we made some proposals on this ballot address that we got, and now we voted on some of them. So we already have 3 proposals, and you will see it's nice that you get an auto-generated front end, like the whole front end UI with buttons that you can use with the backend contract from the Ethereum network. But it's a little bit complicated. You have to copy addresses and you have to fill in with quotation marks, and it's not so nice. But we created also a real front end, a custom front end. So if we want to now see all these proposals with a nice front end, you can go to your award token or to ours. I will copy the address. I will copy this address. I will paste it to the Jitsi chat. Award token. So this one is the address that we got when we deployed our award token on the Robston test network. You can use your own ones, but this one now has already some proposals from you. So it makes more sense to do this. And you copy it. And then you go to bit.ly/remix-workshop-repository. I will also copy this. Or can you see it? Do you see it on a? Maybe you can type it quickly because now I have the award token address in my clipboard.
Yeah, they are now typing.
Okay, because when you open this one, you come to an empty page, and ideally, if it works, I didn't try it for some time, it should ask you for the address of an award token that was deployed. So you can paste the award token address, and then this front end will load all the logic of this voting app, but as a backend, it will use the one that you pasted in. If you deploy your own version of the award token, you get a different address. You can also use this front end with the different address, and then it will be the same front end, but it's for a different voting. So for example, if you put your award token address in, you will not see any proposals because it's a freshly deployed version with no proposals. Or maybe one. But if you put in the award token address that I put on the Jitsi chat, which is ours, you should see like 2, 3, 4 proposals because it has all the proposals that we just created in Remix. Our Remix, the UDAP was already a front end, but a very ugly one. So now we just made a better one. Okay, I will also open it now on my screen. Okay, it leads to the GitHub page. But the GitHub page on top has the link to open it. So let's open this one, sorry. So on this GitHub repository, you can see all the source code, how it's written. Okay, we already have one in from a past time. So I will just clear my local cache. I clear my cache. And then I reload this page. Okay, so now when I come to the voting Ethereum contract front end, oh, it loads a little bit. I hope it works. Let's see.
Yeah, we are now works fine. Okay.
So when you come to when you go to this bit.ly link, you come to the GitHub repository that has all the source code for our voting app, and this is written in JavaScript, of course, and HTML and CSS. And if you open the link on top, you come to our voting app, and it will. If you didn't put the address in yet, now you can do it. I pasted it in the Jitsi address, and then it loads the front end with this address as the backend, which is our deployed version of the award token contract, which has the ballot, which has all our proposals. So I submit it. And now you see the front end, and it says already Nina's proposal, and there's we are friends who makes the better app together. Then Abby's proposal, some Jason, handsome Alex proposal. So we see already 5 proposals.
We don't have a clear winner yet.
Yeah,
so now you can vote here.
You see Nina's proposal has 2 votes. And Abby's also has 2 votes, and handsome Alex has 2 votes.
Let's quickly vote. Now we can vote also
not even sure.
I will vote for handsome Alex.
Vote Abby. Vote Abby.
Okay, I vote Abby.
One thing. You cannot vote because you already voted, but you can now go on MetaMask here, change your account address,
Oh, switch address.
and then you reload the page, and then you can vote because this other address didn't
Other
vote yet.
accounts. Mhm.
Okay, let's see.
So you can also create another account, and you can also send your new account some test ethers from your existing one if you want.
Woohoo!
Woohoo, thank you.
Nina voted.
But now it's not immediately visible because it needs some time for
Can
the.
you click again?
It needs some time to process.
But you maybe can you show the process again of voting?
Yeah.
So if you select, can you select one?
Yeah, but now should I change the?
Then change the account again. Let's have even another account.
Okay. I refresh.
Okay, so now we can vote.
Oh, I did.
Okay. So again, let's go. I hear this Jason. I will vote for the Jason proposal. Has no proposal, no votes yet. So I click here, and now if I want to vote, I submit. It asks me, but once I submit here, I have a link on Etherscan. You can see a receipt that you voted. So if you click it, it opens and you see the transaction. So that's your receipt that will actually show you on what you voted. Because otherwise, if you just use the front end, how will you know what is now my transaction ID? It doesn't display that. In Remix, yes, you saw it, but it's pretty ugly. But here, for a normal user, they get the receipt for Etherscan.
So let's see. What is the current state?
Jason also now has one.
Can you vote also? Are you all on this one? Do you get all these proposals?
Nina, can you? Okay.
Let's create a new proposal.
I can also here create quickly a new proposal. Maybe I get some votes.
Here, for example, you see there is not anymore this target address because you only need title and description. The target address, the front end can already take that information from your current MetaMask account, so you don't have to fill it out yourself. And here's again your receipt for making a proposal. And now, now it probably needs some time to be mined, to be confirmed. You can check also on Etherscan. Yes, pending. So maybe in the meantime I can say a little bit something about our Solidity contracts. So the award token contract is actually quite small. I mean, it has maybe some lines of code, but not so many. But there is it also passed through. So just to say again, in the Remix, we have the award token contract, but it's quite small. It still has. Are you currently busy with trying out?
Refresh.
Just tell us when we should continue, because maybe everybody is busy now trying out. We can't see it.
This one? Hours?
Do you all see the voting Ethereum contract with all the proposals, and did you vote?
Yeah, but one question that Abby got is when she switched to account 1 to vote, but the pop-up it said it used account 2.
Sorry, the pop-up says?
The pop-up said it used account 2, not account 1.
I'm not sure. Did you switch on the web page, or did you switch on Remix?
Switch on web page and refresh the patch already.
Okay, then it should work. Try again. Maybe sometimes it's there, like just refresh again. So first you have to change the account, then you have to refresh.
Or just create a new one.
Or just create a new account or something. I don't know. Maybe there's still some bugs. I mean, this one was created to showcase. It's not completely bulletproof. Maybe.
And also sometimes if there's some problem, I also like restart the MetaMask. So this like, you can do with
clear.
wait, you can go to manage extensions and then I do it off and on again. Like hardware.
Yeah, you can right click the MetaMask extension icon and then you can go to manage extension and then there is like a little slider to turn it off and on again. This sometimes also helps. Can you log into MetaMask?
我刚刚乱找的。
bug。
Now refresh.
OK。因为之前的时候都 recheck。
That's big.
那你直接投他们。
应该有吧，因为3票。
嗯。
哎，还是2票。
那个。
他说哪个？你说合约吗？合约本体是省略的题。
省略题跟 JavaScript 很像。
But can you also recall the transaction?
它官网有教，所以有题的官网可以。
So should I continue?
OK。OK。
Just tell me when you're ready.
The winner also. I know that's at the
不要
end.
等，不要等。你投了，他没那么快更新，你换到另外一个账号去看，那就会很快。这样会没空。
Oh, fuck it.
有吗？有变。这样可能要等一下。
Is there something that I can help with, or you just have to tell me when you're ready and I can continue?
Yeah, please continue.
Yeah, continue.
Continue.
Okay.
Then refresh. Let's see what is the situation currently.
So the situation. Yeah, many people have multiple votes. That's fine.
Oh, Nora added proposal. Cool.
Cool. Nora also. There's even like a tie between Abby's and Nina's proposal. I don't even know what the app will do. What did we do if there's a tie? But okay.
Vote for Abby.
Yeah, but so let's see. I will try now. Usually we have programmed that one ballot lasts for 7 hours. That's hard coded, and only when the 7 hours passed, you can close the round and there can be a winner. But in order to have a nicer presentation, we added like a method close around early, so that we can, after some votes have been given, we can close the round so that we can show a winner. I hope it works. That's something that we added custom. So I would now click close round early. Afterwards, you can't give any votes anymore. So now this one is pending. I have to confirm the transaction, I guess. Oh, I can't.
Yeah, you have to be the one who created.
Which one was the account that you created it with? Number 2?
I think so.
There is only number 2. But it didn't ask me for a pop-up. Because we restarted MetaMask in between.
Yes.
Okay, but then let's just copy this address, and then we refresh. Okay. Now we have to load everything again. Okay, that's bad. Okay, I also need now some time to just refresh everything. So, I quickly will do all these steps again. Okay, so I just needed to quickly do all the things again because I also refreshed now everything. Okay, so I have the award token and I need to connect to it again to continue. So let's compile it. Now I have to go on the Jitsi chat. I hope all the chat messages will be there. I have to copy my award token contract. Did I paste that too? I think I did, no? But where? Before the ballot. So here's the ballot. This was the award token, I guess. Let me just connect to it again. Okay. And let's see current ballots. Okay. So now I can close the round early. I try to do that. To say we finish now with the voting. This is a method that we added custom to do the presentation. Usually there's a fixed amount of 7 hours that the ballot is open, so that everybody who wants to participate knows there's enough time to make proposals and not the proposal just doesn't end early. And now after the round closed, we can finish the minting. And now the finish the minting. Submit. Now the winning proposal, but now because it was a tie, I don't exactly know what happens, should receive the tokens. Did we even say how many tokens we mint?
We didn't mint
0. So the winner will receive 0 tokens because we forgot to mint. So when we before we started the round, we should have clicked mint and have like a certain amount of tokens minted, and then when we say finish minting, which is after we opened the round, started a new round, and then closed the round, the winner would get it. But now probably the winner gets 0. Great. Let's see. Now we can make. That's not perfect, but okay. Let's see. Get
so much
previous
about the
winners. Oh, so there is no previous winner, even though the minting everything is finished, which is maybe because there was a tie. There was two proposals who had 3 votes, which is again not perfect because there should be some logic. What would the contract do in case there is a tie? But this already shows you one thing, that all this is not perfect. You can make mistakes because, we didn't think, what if there is a tie and there's 2 people? Or what if you forgot to mint and then there's no tokens? And all these kind of things. So that's why I want to quickly go back to our award token.sol. The purpose of the contracts should always be that they are super, super simple. Because the less... so this award token actually already has quite a lot of functions. If you can make it simpler, that's even better, because the less complicated they are, the less chances that you make a bug. So for example, what we do, there is this Open Zeppelin. Open Zeppelin is an organization, and on GitHub they have many contracts, like an ERC20 token, and many of them are our dependencies now here. So you have ownership, that something is ownable, Like you have an owner, and the owner can maybe add or remove members, has some more. Then we have a math functionality to have some math calculations. You want to make an ERC20 token, and then you have the token should be mintable. So there's many cases where those Open Zeppelin people, but also others, they make contracts and they put a lot of effort into them to make them, to remove all the bugs, to audit them, and they're all professionals. So the best thing to do is if you reuse existing contracts that have been audited by Open Zeppelin or others, like we in our award token reuse the mintable token contract. And this means most functionality that our contract has is proven or best practices functionality that has been reviewed a lot of times, and we ideally only add very little on top of it, because the less we add, the less chances that we make some bugs by mistake. So when you have, and over time there will be more and more organizations creating contracts with functionality that a lot of people want to use, and then you just start reusing those instead of writing them yourself from scratch. And that leaves the most of the work to the front end. So once you reuse existing contracts, like an ERC20 token, you just copy paste it or you import it, and that's it. And then you deploy your instance. And only if you need like really a custom one, you try to add very little custom functionality on top of existing ones, and then you deploy an instance. But most of the work also starts once you deploy such a contract that is maybe combining 2 or 3 standard contracts. And this is what we do in our front end. So the app that you saw, the voting app, one part is the front end part where you make the menus, the buttons, and everything that you need to interact. But the other one is once the user clicks the button, you have to now trigger a transaction. And and how do you do that in a front end? So once you have MetaMask installed or something similar like MetaMask, you can.
Oops.
You can.
Yeah.
Where did we get disconnected? Did you hear everything?
Hello.
Yes.
Yes. Hey.
What was the last thing you heard?
We can. Yes, you can.
Okay. Something that you can.
Okay. So did you hear the stuff that I said about the Open Zeppelin contracts?
Not yet.
Yes.
Ah, okay.
Huh?
So the one thing is you try to reuse best practices like an ERC20 contract. You just don't write it yourself. You just use it, and then you do the front end. So how did we build our front end? You can go on GitHub and clone the repository, and this is how it looks like. Should you?
I mean, once you do it, you just clone it, then you cd in the folder, you npm install and npm start, and yeah, that's
if you actually make changes, you would npm run build, commit it and push it and make a pull request.
If you will try, just let us know if you have any problems.
I pasted the link to the slide in the Jitsi chat. So this was the front end where you can enter the award token, and then you see the proposals, and you can create your new proposal, and you can submit the proposal, and you basically do everything that you can see also in Remix. But you can also what this uses when you want to show all the proposals, it uses the get proposals method, which you can also trigger in Remix with the button. But how do you do this now in the front end? So, we don't have those slides here in anymore. Then let me go to GitHub. So how do we get there? This link just brings us there. So if you go, here you have the whole page. If you go to our source folder, and then you can go to, for example, index.js, then you So in the index.js file, you have CSS, you have HTML, and so on. But when you start doing things, we actually have here many steps. So we start the first step, and it says get address. So this is the first. We first need to get our address. So when we do the get address, it actually uses something that we use. It's called the Web3.js module. Web3 is a module that exists in many programming languages. It was written for Python and for Ruby or JavaScript and Go. I mean, most languages you have a Web3 object. So also you have it in JavaScript, and when you install it and add it to your HTML page, you can use it, and the Web3 object has a method getAccounts. And the getAccounts method, this is what we do in the first step, it gives you your local addresses. So these are the addresses that you have in your MetaMask that you currently selected. So here account 2 has an address, so this is the address that you get. And we just take the first one and say, okay, this one is the address that you will use the app with. Then after this, we go to step 2. So now get award token contract. So we make a new award token, and this is what we do this by, let's go back to the course file. We have here, I think, contracts, award token. So we have an ABI JSON. This ABI JSON, do you see it?
Yeah.
So the ABI JSON is something that I copy pasted from Remix. Let me just quickly go to Remix. If you go on Remix and you go to the compile tab and you compile the award token, there's a button details. If you click on details, you can see the bytecode and you can copy that to the clipboard. But here below you see the ABI.
What is ABI?
And the ABI is, you can see, this is like, it is a description of the interface. In the backend, you can say if you have an API that you can call, like a REST API or some kind of API, an interface you can interact with. This ABI is a JSON format that describes the interface, all the methods that you can use. And if I copy it to the clipboard, it copies it in JSON, and then I just pasted it to a file. And now this is the file. So here it says anonymous false, input, and so on. And if I go here to Remix, details, and I go to ABI, it also starts with anonymous false, and so on. It's the same stuff. Just now here the JSON is shown as a collapsible thing. And now the award token, when I create an instance, it doesn't do a lot. It just uses again the Web3 address. It gets the address. This is the address that you want to create it from, your own address. And then it calls a Web3 ETH contract. That's a method, and you give it the ABI. So now what we do is we connect to the address that you put into the input field. So in the presentation, when we started our journey, there was this input field. Do you see it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So this one, when we trigger the button,
This is actually the contract address, and you can get it here. So when you deploy it, this is the address of the award token.
Yeah. So if you have a deployed award token, the code, this is the code when you put your address into this input field and click submit. So then there will be the method Web3 ETH contract. It uses the ABI, which I just showed. This is the JSON file. It describes the API or the interface of the contract. And now the question is just what is the address that you want to connect to? This was this one that you input. So now from the combination of the address, from the deployed ABI award token sol contract and the ABI, it knows enough to create an object. And this object has all the methods that are described in the ABI. And when you use any of those methods, it will send a transaction to that address and assumes that there is an award token instance running on that address on the Ethereum network, and it sends it through MetaMask using the Web3
Can we
object.
see like vote?
Yeah, so let me go back a little bit to the overview.
How do we use Web3?
So the first step was get my address. That uses Web3 ETH accounts. The second step was get award token contract, which used a new instance of award token, but in the award token file we saw it used the Web3 ETH contract method. Now we want to say
We want to get the current ballot, because when you deploy the award token, you also you deployed the ballot.
yeah, because you started the round, it created a ballot. So the award token has methods, for example, get previous winners and get current ballot. We call both of them because the get previous winners is something that we display on the web page when there was already a round, and the current ballot is we need to show all the proposals that exist currently. And then we go further to get ballot contract. So get ballot contract gets us the contract instance for the ballot that is behind this current ballot address. So award token current ballot address gives us the address of the ballot, and now we create an instance from that ballot using the ballot API, and this address is the same way as we did for the award token, so that afterwards we can now get current proposal addresses, which uses now the ballot methods. So the ballot instance has, similar to award token, has a method get proposals, and it lists us all the proposals.
And this is where do we have this?
We have to first go and say current ballot is this one.
Yeah.
So this one is the address that we get from current ballot, and then we say add address, and now it created a ballot instance.
No, we have to change. Sorry, we have to switch to ballot.
Okay. So now it created a ballot instance, and these are the methods. So to go back to the code, here again, ballot methods get proposals. So let's click the get proposals method. It gives us, these are all the addresses from all the proposals. So when we have the proposals, we
First we get proposal addresses, but now we also need to fetch all the content of this.
Right. Now we basically have to call in a loop. For each of them, we have the proposals with the address from all these addresses that we got.
So this is this function. If you remember, we also
let's take the first one.
Copied a proposal address, and then we called it like this.
Proposal, and it lists us the contents, description, title, and so on. So in this step, we get a loop for addresses for each of them, call proposal, because we need the information. And then when we finish this step, we come to the final step, and the final step is basically call done with the resulting logic, and the resulting logic is the list of all the proposals and their content. So now we can finally give all this data. We fetched all the data from the Ethereum network about our award token, ballot, and all the proposals and all the content of the proposals, and we start our dApp. So we call our dApp with this data, which gives us back a DOM element, and this DOM element we put into the browser, and then you can see the whole app. And the dApp is what we required here, and this one contains all the logic, HTML, and CSS that is necessary to give you the entire app that you just saw.
To kind of nicely display.
Yeah, this one. But it can only start after we fetched all the data first, because this data, it needs to load. And then later on, when you click buttons, it continues to use the Web3 object to call or interact with the Ethereum network. And the Web3 object, there is also an entire documentation for it. What are all the methods that you can call? But you can use our source code to find like the ones that we used to interact.
maybe we can close it here because there is, like you see, there could be a whole new workshop for Solidity, whole new workshop for just Web3. This was kind of a workshop of Remix. So I hope you got some overview, and now maybe some questions or discussions that you still have.
It can also be a workshop for some how to build a nice front end then.
Yeah, just one more thing. We also, in this Ethereum team, we have a chat. You can find it also here in the support tab. There's this community chat. So if you have any questions, there is like almost 2,000 people who are constantly kind of, hey, how do I do this, that? So you can come and ask, or you can also post, of course, on Wizard Amiga.
Another thing is, for somebody who actually, I don't know what is the background of all of you, but if somebody wants to use this at work or somewhere for a contract and doesn't trust to use Remix in the browser, you can go to the GitHub repository, clone it, and you can run it offline. There is even an Electron app, so you can run it as a desktop app, but you can also run it as a local host app and then use your browser and just connect to your local host server. Or you can also open Atom. There's an Atom plugin to run the same Remix IDE.
Thank you.
Yay, thanks. That's it, I think. It's enough.
And this is the Remix crew. I mean, these are the people behind the whole tutorial, so it wasn't made just by two of us, but also Jan, Rock, this is Rice too, and Yuri. So we are like remote team. Two of us are in England. Jan is in Berlin. Rice too is in Paris, and Yuri Matthias is in Quebec, Canada.
Yeah, near Toronto.
Questions?
Do you have any questions?
Yes. A lot of questions.
Was it approximately useful? Like, did you get some overview? Or very confused?
Maybe it was mainly confused, but you can. The good thing is, hopefully, it's recorded, so you can watch it again. But what's your question?
For now, so I'd like to know what is the ballot. I mean, it's a backend, right? It's
Yes. So there's here. Can you see the screen still?
yes.
Okay. So there's a word token sol, but there's also ballot.sol. So
Sol is like Solidity.
Solidity. It's a file extension for Solidity. So the award token.sol is a Solidity program. We call it contracts, and you can compile and deploy it. And the ballot.sol is also a program, or we call it a contract, smart contract, and you can deploy it. The award token has all the logic. It uses mintable ERC20 token. It has all the logic to create tokens that have all the methods that tokens need so that you can, whatever tokens do. And the ballot has all the logic to make proposals and vote proposals. And the award token uses also the ballot so that it can combine the minted tokens and make the distribution process based on the ballot. So we use both of them.
Okay. So when we start to write like smart contract, we write logic on the ballot.
You write the logic for a smart contract in Solidity files.
So you basically, when you start, you see here an example. You write like which version of Solidity you want to use. You make a new file. You say, I don't know, my contract. You take a version, then you have contract, my contract. And this should already, I think, be enough to deploy it, or?
Let's try compile.
Yes, so I just compiled my contract, which has nothing.
And now if you go to the run tab, you can choose my contract.
We can clear everything, and also here to have a fresh start.
And now you can here click deploy my contract. And now it's a pending transaction.
But when you are playing, this takes so long, with all these pending transactions. So here we usually just switch to JavaScript VM, which makes everything just run inside of the browser. You don't have to use MetaMask. So you see, you can just click deploy,
Okay.
poof, and it immediately deploys.
Yes.
So you immediately get everything.
The disadvantage is that if you want somebody else to interact with your thing, it's impossible. It only lives in your browser. It's a simulation. But we want now that you can also vote on our proposal, so we actually needed to use the ROP test network. But now if you expand this little UI that was generated, it doesn't have any methods, because we now made an empty contract, so it doesn't have any methods to use.
So if we would, I don't know, where is the ballot? So can we make, yeah, so basically when you define, how are they called, variables in Solidity, you have to, it's a static typed language, so you have to say what will the variables be. So this one, weight, is going to be an integer. Voted is going to be a boolean. This vote will also be an integer, and the delegate is going to be an address. So you always you don't say just var and whatever, but you have to decide in advance what will the variable be. So this is like a little bit different, and then you design the whole variables, and then you start using the functions. And there you also define if some functions are public, some are just internal.
Yeah, so basically, when you compile it, it compiles to assembly language that the Ethereum virtual machine understands. And there's multiple languages. One of them is Solidity. And Solidity is meant to be an object-oriented language, because there's many people who know how to use object-oriented languages. And it was meant to look a little bit similar to Java and JavaScript. Now, whether they succeeded with this or not, maybe compared to other languages, yes. But still, I think if you just know Java and JavaScript, or one of them, it looks familiar, but you still have to learn the details of Solidity if you really want to write a Solidity contract.
So this is like
What I found for myself, because I know JavaScript, and the object-oriented parts of JavaScript, when I read a Solidity contract, it's often enough for me to get a feeling how it works. Like, I can read it and approximately understand what it does, but I could not write it. For this, you have to actually learn it.
As you can see, I just copied the first example that they have on Solidity documentation. They have two functions, set some value. They say uint, so there is a variable called store data, and with the function set, we set the stored data to x that we will pass, and with get, we return the stored data. So now I compiled this contract, and then I deployed it, so I got this, so I can do it again just to make it easier for you. So I compile, simple storage, cool. Then I go to run tab, I have simple storage, JavaScript VM to make it fast, and I click deploy. And I get the simple storage contract, and I get two functions, set and get. Set function writes on the database, or sends the data, that's why it's red, and it's paid, you have to pay some gas for it. And get function is basically a get call, so you don't have to pay anything, you just execute it. So let's set this stored data variable to, 2018. We set it, transaction was successful, and now we can run get, and we see that our stored data is returned and the value is 2018. So this is the basic how you can start. And then here you can find everything and more than you ever dreamt about.
Yeah, solidity.readthedocs.io.
So this is the Solidity part. I can send the link.
see examples.
I think it has more similarity to Java than to JavaScript.
Oh, really?
And what is the best? The guy who was part of Coding Amigos in Berlin, Chris, he wrote the Solidity language.
He still does. He works also for the Ethereum Foundation.
But he's a creator of Solidity language. We met like 4 or 5 years ago, and he just basically, not then, but like approximately then, finished his PhD in cryptography, and then became interested in Ethereum. And when he joined, there was this project open to build a new language, and together with one other dude, this other dude gave out like the sketch, and then Chris built the language.
Are there more questions?
Is it very late in Taipei?
Yeah, now it's 10 o'clock p.m.
Yeah, because here it's like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, so I can imagine there is like super late.
It's 10 here.
Yeah,
And everybody is
going home.
going to home now.
Yeah, we thought it's gonna go faster, but then kind of we wanted
But at
to
least
go
we did
through
it all
everything.
together, so we got some
Yeah.
feeling for next.
Yeah, so I mean, check it out and come to the chat. I mean, to Wizard Amigos chat, and then we can discuss.
Yes, can you also post the Wizard Amigos chat again? Because if you have more questions, or you want to maybe at home or later, or on next weekend or whatever, try it again, and you're stuck, you can always come to the Wizard Amigos chat and ask, and we can help.
You have this link. If you don't, I will just send it here in Jitsi.
Got it.
So this is where we are because we also work. I mean, our work is here on Ethereum Remix, answering people who are using, and our internal Remix channel is here. So we are constantly here on Facebook, not always, but here we are always.
Oh, there's one more thing, generally, for the Remix, but also for some other projects, we are planning to outsource more work to, and also paid work to people who want to work remotely. And all the learning resources that we have in Wizard Amigos, they also include all the resources necessary to start contributing. So maybe you can then also later do, if you feel like, try out, learn some of this Remix stuff and some of all the JavaScript lessons, and then we can see, and we can get you some remote job if you're interested in this, or some remote gigs. Ideally, we will be all self-employed, no employment. But yeah.
Yay.
So here is like all the resources are kind of gathered, so you can check. Cool. So talk to you soon, I hope.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you guys.
So amazing.
Thanks, Alex.
Have a lovely evening, everyone, people.
You too.
Yeah.
Thanks.
See you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye
Have
bye.
a good day. Bye.
Bye bye.